So a big welcome to the video version of the RV Show USA radio program. I think you'll enjoy today's segment. Links to connect with the folks that you see here on the channel are in the description of today's video. By the way, I also want to mention the free RV report that will save you money and help prevent you from getting ripped off when buying or selling an RV is available to view and download now. You can catch the most updated version of the free RV report at freervreport.com. freervreport.com. Got that? One more time, freervreport.com.
The RV Show USA. Start living the RV dream today.
So I have a question for you. Have you ever been lost? I'm not talking about being lost in your car. I'm talking about being really lost in the woods, like on a hike. I mean lost, where they literally have to come and search for you. I'll tell you, thousands of people get lost in the woods every single year, and most of those people, thankfully, are found within 24 hours, but not always. And too often when they are found, they are dead. I know. Up now, Mike Wendland from RV Lifestyle drills down on the subject of missing hikers in our national parks with a retired law enforcement officer who shares her experiences in finding missing people, including the dead ones.
Let me just jump right in and start. Is there such a thing as a typical way that a hiker gets lost that you have found in your experience in national parks?
My first response to that is no, because I think every hiker is going to get lost. If you hike it enough times, there's going to be time you're like, oh, I think I missed the intersection, right? You know, that happens to all of us. What gets unusual is which hikers don't get found. You know, when does that become where you're lost for 5 days instead of an hour?
Well, how do you find a lost person, a lost hiker, particularly when you're in a place like Yosemite or the Grand Canyon or our national parks, which can be so big? Where do you even begin to start? What clues do you look for?
Yeah, that's a great question. And as a park ranger, you know, I initiated a lot of searches. What happens typically is somebody calls and says, my buddy Mike, he was supposed to meet me for dinner. He's not here, and he was hiking in the Grand Canyon. And we call that an overdue hiker. And, you know, about 97% of those are solved within 24 hours. You find that person alive usually, but every once in a while you find their body. So what happens is you need to investigate right away. You start asking questions. Well, does Mike have any illnesses? Was there a thunderstorm? You know, did he say for sure he'd be out at this time? Then you also do what's called a hasty search, and you send a helicopter or some ground pounders, we call them, searchers on the ground to run to where the most likely location this person would be. And they're, just as you said, they're supposed to search for clues. So you got the hasty, you got the investigation. The other thing that the ranger has to do is what's called containment. Set up somebody at the trailhead, make sure that person doesn't walk out of the park or out of the trailhead or get in their car and drive off without you knowing. And that's all needs to be done all at once, because a search is actually an emergency. You need to find that person quickly if they're in trouble.
Now, you said that 97% are found, usually within a 24-hour period of time. Reversing that a bit, when should somebody report that somebody is missing? We had a group, for example, a few years ago that were going to spend an overnight at Smoky Mountain National Park. And they were going to stay in one of those cabins that they were arranged for. And one of our hikers came back the next morning and said, hey, they weren't there. So, you know, our dilemma was, do we report that? And we did. And it turns out they were okay. But I always felt, well, should we have reported it? When do you report that somebody is missing?
I would err on the side of sooner rather than later. Well, I want to say you want to start the investigation stage immediately, and that is questioning what happened, why are they late, and this is when we go hiking, we should always tell people, look, if I'm not out by 3 p.m. on Sunday, there's a problem. Call for help. So if we do that ahead of time, that takes that angst away from the person who needs to report it. But if the person hasn't told you that, go ahead and start investigating, preserving evidence, and start calling agencies that has jurisdiction where that person was last seen, and tell them that they need to initiate a missing persons case or a response.
For those of us who do like to hike, what are some of the things you mentioned? Always tell people, hey, this is the drop dead time that I need to, if you haven't heard from me, then something's wrong. That's a great thing for us all to remember. But what are some of the other things that we can do to minimize any problems should we get lost or should something happen on the trail, to help us be found? What are some of the things that we should do?
You know, one thing with the new technology, we have these new GPS locator devices, and most of them have an emergency SOS button that you can touch. Some of them even have text abilities where you text through a satellite. And so even when there's cell service dead zones, you can still text for help or let somebody know you're running late, things like that. They can be expensive, but they're a lifesaver for sure. The other thing is, if you're lost, what I'm noticing with the people that we can't find is we have trouble finding clues. Leave messages somehow. Leave a breadcrumb trail for the searchers to follow. And that could be maybe set an arrow with your initials that shows where you're going, or writing a note, I'm headed toward water, so that people know where to look for you. Because that's what often happens. Sometimes we don't even know where to start looking for the person.
And so you find something like that, and at least it gives you an idea. This is where they were. This is the direction they're going, and you can move. Even backing up ahead of that, what are some of the things that we could do to decrease the likelihood of us getting lost in the first place?
One thing is you want to have a map. If you're going to a new place that you don't know, you want to have a map and have studied the map and know how to read it. One thing is sometimes what happens to me is I just spontaneously want to go on a hike. I don't have a map. Go to the trailhead and see if there's a trail map there, and take a picture of it with your phone. And so that way it's on your phone. If you lose your way while you're hiking, look on your phone. Be careful at intersections. Here's something to do when you're hiking with someone. If you get to an intersection and you're ahead of them and they're slower than you, at every intersection, stop and wait for that person. Go, hey, okay, we're going this way. Because that's how people get separated, is they get lost sometimes. Is there's a confusing intersection, but the rest of the party went ahead. And so they go down this other way, not knowing that everybody else went the other way. So always wait for your hiking buddies when you're at an intersection.
I've heard it often said that if you drive to a trailhead and you leave your vehicle there, put a note in it that says, hey, gone off from this trail and expected to be back, at 4 o'clock, something like that. Is that a good idea as well? Or
I do think that's a good idea. You do, because cars get broken into at trailheads, you might want to be careful about where everybody could read that. But you could also have that note where the rangers would find it if they had to get in your car. Texting a friend that information is probably the best. And also that person knows they're kind of responsible. Look, you're responsible for asking about me if I don't text you by 5 p.m. on Friday. Call the cops.
Let's touch base a little bit about you, Andrea. You were a ranger for a long time, and how did you become involved in so many of these search and rescue operations?
Yeah, I was a National Park Service ranger for 12 years. I started in 1987, and I worked at several national parks, including really big and busy ones like Grand Canyon and Yosemite. And law enforcement and search and rescue was the primary job that I had, was responding to crises in a national park. And so these parks are busy enough that rangers see a lot of problems and respond to a lot of overdue hikers. So that was a common task for me. So when I was a ranger of the Grand Canyon, I had a missing hiker case, and that I was in charge of the operation to find him, and I couldn't find him. And it really bothered me. I never really got over it. So fast forward, that was 1995. Fast forward 20 years later, and in 2015, a Pacific Crest Trail hiker named Chris Sylvia, who was 28, disappeared from the trail and was never found. And when I heard about that case, it reminded me so much of the case I failed to solve at Grand Canyon that I just got hooked. And I couldn't let it go. I just didn't seem right that he couldn't be found. His gear was on the trail. And so I called his family and asked for their blessing to do a pro bono investigation into his disappearance. And then what happened, I started to meet other people who were searching for other missing hikers who had gone missing on the Pacific Crest Trail. And we started to work together.
How many people go missing and are never found out there? It seems like we hear about this fairly regularly.
Now, according to FBI statistics, about 600,000 people reported missing every year, and a vast majority of them are found. And most of those are from urban, suburban areas. The government is not doing a good job at tracking statistics on people who go missing from public lands, but a number that gets thrown out there a lot is there are 1,600 people who remain missing from federal public lands, national parks, Forest Service. So we don't know as much about it as we should, but you'll see on Facebook and the news, you hear about a hiker going missing, about once a week in the summer, easily.
Now, there's two cases that you became personally involved with, these, and as you say, obsessed with them. The one in Grand Canyon and the one on the Pacific Crest Trail. What happened to those people? Were they ever found? What did you learn?
The 28-year-old in the Grand Canyon, he was eventually found by accident. Some Park Service maintenance people were working on a pipeline far back in the backcountry, and they found some human remains, and it ended up being this 28-year-old young man.
Did you ever find out what happened to him?
It's unclear. He either fell, or it's possible he committed suicide. I believe he fell. But it's possible that he was despondent. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, the hikers on the Pacific Crest Trail, I call them the PCT missing. There's 3 of them: Chris Sylvia, Chris Fowler, and David O'Sullivan. They remain missing to date, and so people are still looking for them and still hoping for a lead.
Were these separate cases, or were they all together?
They were separate. Chris Sylvia went missing in February 2015. Then Chris Fowler in October of 2016. Sylvia was in Southern California. Chris Fowler was in Washington State. And then David O'Sullivan went missing in April 2017, also in Southern California. Are those cases connected? Most likely not, but there are some odd things on the Pacific Crest Trail. There's dangerous people. There's a cult on the Pacific Crest Trail. So when you don't find a body, it's very unsettling because you don't know what happened to them.
When I was lost for a few hours on BLM land years ago, my brain started playing tricks on me. I'd start thinking one thing, and then a second later, I'd be second guessing myself. Can you just imagine the fear when people get really lost? I mean, really and truly lost. Lots of great info here by Mike Wendland and RV Lifestyle. As always, he is so good at interviewing people who are in the know. You should check out Mike's YouTube channel called RV Lifestyle. It's really, really good. And yes, you can also link to him from our website, thervshowusa.com. Hey, it's the RV Wingman. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss a video. And click the word more in the description below for show links and learn how we can stay connected. Until next time, be safe, have fun, play nice, and don't leave your good manners at home.